Hey, it's Grayson here. Wind's blowing kind of crazy down by the beach, and I just started to think about you guys and what I was going to film for you guys last night. I think that the wave's just a perfect place to film about this particular topic, which we kind of broke a little bit in the last, not the last video, but the video before last, the behavioral models video, which that's the concept of flow, which honestly, kind of tacky thing just to put waves on when we're talking about the concept of flow, but in relation to Amberlynn Reid, what I want to kind of understand is that it's not necessarily a cycle that she's going through. It is a cycle, but the cause isn't necessarily a cycle. What is happening is that when she's fueled by something that pushes her in that right direction, in the good direction, in the healthy direction, that lasts for some time. But like any wave, it has its end. What happens or what the outcome is of your time on that wave is dependent upon what you do at the very beginning, what you do to find it, what you do to get yourself in the right place, in the right position. What she has is a failure to put herself in the right position as she is riding that wave. So you get that momentary excitement, and then you just wipe out and fall at the end, and sometimes you have to dust yourself back up and get back out there. If you can't, and if you hurt yourself real bad, that delays everything. That could devastate you. And she's just kind of, she hasn't gotten herself set up into a position where she can really ride something good like that, some good thing that happens to her out like that, and convert it from just that quick little response she gets from the little bit of push. Oh my God, there are lots of people coming around here. Gotta wrap this up. Gonna finish this up back at home. All right, thanks so much. Well, I'm back, and we're back to horribly botched surfing analogies with Grayson Peltier. Or, just kidding, it's an Amberlynn Reid video. You should already know that from what I already put for the first 2 minutes of this video. But I was out at the beach for my mom's birthday, not even her birthday yet, but just something we're doing before her birthday. And of course, I had to think of something to create for you guys about Amberlynn Reid and annoy the heck out of everybody, including but not limited to random people that I just suddenly realized were walking into this very quiet, or so I thought, area where I was filming. But such is what happens when you film in public. All right, so back to that analogy that we were looking at with Amberlynn Reid. So these cycles that she's going through, the cycles that are being shown on different places on social media, as far as what is facially occurring within her YouTube channel, these cycles that have been promulgated by Kicking Geese and other people that look at Amberlynn Reid, I'm not going to disagree with them on that level. What I do have to add here is that looking at it simply through this cycle is not necessarily the best way to look at it, because number one, the only way to circumnavigate the cycle is to go around it, which is exactly what we don't want to do. And number two, I don't think that it really goes deep into the causality of what's actually going on. Of course, Amberlynn Reid is a very complicated person, and a lot of these are kind of simplifications. And nothing I say is professional advice in any way. But I think this could be very helpful, if not just entertaining. So with this sort of model that we're going to use, what happens here is Amberlynn Reid gets into a state, and I'll link my other video on threat responses, loss aversion, and some of the other things that kind of, especially with the loss of subscribers, just triggers this response in her. But she gets this response where she is at a point where she could either be able to ride this wave, or any of the other things that happen when you try to ride a wave could happen, namely wiping out. So at this state, then Amberlynn Reid tries to get through it, and is driven by this external kind of force that is pushing her, and this sort of adrenaline rush that's going through in her mind. But what happens is that this can actually turn into something great. It can turn into a beautiful day that you remember for the rest of your life. It can turn into something really nice for you, but also turn out really badly when you have those big, big moments. It can turn out as being something really awful too if you're not doing the right thing, if you're not setting yourself up in the right way. But initially, of course, it's gonna, if you do a couple things right, initially it's gonna kind of seem like it's okay and like you're having fun, like something, so you have some sort of rush in you. But what we see here is that she doesn't have what it takes to get through. And then she winds up in a bad situation. She winds up with sort of a fall, which that fall is that progression through that cycle that we get to, the sort of, I feel so bad, I feel so sad, can't really make it through, I'm struggling, kind of thing. So really what it is that she doesn't do what it takes to have what it takes to make the most of those moments. So now understanding that, then we have to go into what exactly in her mindset, in her situation, in her environment is causing her to not take advantage of these moments. And sometimes it's kind of her framing and understanding of the moment and sort of how she views it intrinsically. Because in that kind of threat situation where you can either take it and you can see it as something that you're going to ride and you're going to use it in such a good way, you can also view it as something that is a threat to you. You can view it as something like, I have to get away from this. Both are normal responses, and there's nothing inherently morally aberrant about either. But what happens here is that we have a few systems that kind of control what happens when one is in one of these situations. And one of these systems, actually, the first system is the one I already explained that kind of gives her that nice short-acting rush. She's like, okay, I'm on this thing, I'm gonna ride this thing, I am going to do 100 days of weigh-in, 100 days of trying, Optavia diet, and I'm gonna stick with this thing. And it does stick for a little bit. The best way to understand this in relation to this other system I'm going to explain right here is a throw and a catch kind of model. So you have like a ball in the air, and during that time, I'm going to kind of use a little bit of like a picture of like baseball, of like you have a ball that's hit, that's up in the air like a pop fly. You think it's going to actually come down to the ground. You don't really think that's going to come down to the ground, but you're not entirely sure. But it ultimately, instead of actually scoring, it winds up being caught by this other system, this system number 2 here. And what this system number 2 here is it is a control system. It is a system that is it is defense. It is a defense system. I kind of jumped kind of sloppily, awkward segue between those different systems, but one is sort of the representation of the cycle, the other is representation of the inner processes, the sort of factory that produces this other thing here called the cycle. So they are 2 different things, but they're set aside from each other in a sort of way. And hopefully you get all of this stuff. Hopefully I don't get a mad dislike ratio because my cognitive processes are not expressed in a way you guys can understand it. So this system right here, this control system, this defense system, it takes some time to kick in. So it's not going to immediately, like when that ball is in the air, it doesn't immediately grab it, but it grabs it kind of quickly. That's why she dies off within a few days of doing one of these programs. And what that system does is it is looking for what's called agency. Agency is one's capacity to control a given situation, the resources and things that you can use to have control over your own situation in life, most commonly used in the context of political and social decision making. So when that system sees agency as a threat, then it goes and it catches. And what it believes is that whatever is being taken over is not part of Amberlynn. It sees this as this way Amberlynn is acting is not part of Amberlynn Reid. And that is why when she kind of falls down here, that's why she'll be like, oh, I want to make a variety of content. I want to be able to express myself more freely. I don't want to feel like I'm controlled. It's because this agency system feels like it's being controlled. It needs to defend against being controlled. And at that point, then it's like, okay, I'm in control. I have the ball. This was a bad thing. I'm scarred by it. And the way the system responds is very much controlled by her past experience of childhood trauma, whatever emotional stuff is going on with her. That system, it gets trained. That sort of outfielder in our baseball analogy gets trained to get faster, quicker, sharper at catching that ball by past experience. It basically drills it to get at that thing faster and to stop it quicker. And then it kind of realizes, oh no, that's bad, and it creates and then obviously now it knows, okay, we're in a conflict situation. That's where resentment toward viewers comes in, because it's like, okay, I have this opponent, I'm staring it down, and they want to do this to me. They want to take me out of the control of my own life. And that can also make you kind of sad, because if you feel like, oh no, they're onto me, that can make you sad, especially in somebody that's emotionally fragile, that isn't really mentally tough like Amberlynn Reid is. And that's why you get to where you get to. And what these systems do is they both overcorrect and overcorrect. So the system number one, that sort of like adrenaline-fueled system, it shoots her all the way up here to a point that is not an equilibrium. It's a local equilibrium, but it's not an actual equilibrium in the scale of Amberlynn Reid's entire life and her existence. But then this other system drops her all the way back down here. Then you start to get to something that's closer to an equilibrium after those sort of corrections. And that's when that's when the third system comes into play, which is the equilibrium maintenance system. This equilibrium maintenance system is the one that keeps her in the mode of, I'm going to stay with doing things the way I do it, doing things with the torrid halls, doing the sort of diets that don't really work, doing things my own way, not going and getting help. And that's part of the not going and getting help. That goes a lot back to that setup in the surfing analogy that I had earlier on. The sort of setup and the way that she's riding the wave. She's not riding it to last, she's riding it to fall, to put it very simply. She's not preparing herself and putting herself in the right position. I should have explained where putting yourself in the right position is, but I'm going all over the place, seriously. But yeah, so that means that little part of it didn't create a new equilibrium. Now you just have equilibrium maintenance, which just runs itself the way that Amberlynn Reid runs herself, Torrid Hall, Mukbang, all that stuff. And this equilibrium maintenance system maybe kind of sort of wants weight loss, but wants it within this very small little realm like this. It's like a sticky putty that like holds her in this place, and it's pretty tough. You need that like heavy push of like losing subscribers, bad comments, that kind of stuff to push that out of the way, because it's pretty darn strong. So then what do we make of this? What do we understand about these kinds of situations? Number one, the reason why that first part didn't work, the reason why it eventually got caught, the reason why it eventually stops, is because there is another system that believes that Amberlynn Reid is out of control, outside of her agency, outside of her own persona, because of what's being done. And how do you do that? The cure for a problem with agency is to let the agency do what it does, but do it in collaboration, creating sort of a shared consciousness rather than an exterior force, sort of like becoming one with it. These are things that obviously take work, and I am not expecting Amberlynn Reid to wake up one day and go and like try to work through these things and try to have deep, deep thoughts about her relationship to her place and her vision of the world and herself. But if she did, she has to understand that these forces are something that you kind of want to work with, and the people that, the quote-unquote haters, have to understand is that you're working with Amberlynn Reid. You're sharing a consciousness with Amberlynn Reid to alter how she views things. You're not forcing her, you're not pushing her, you're not demeaning her. And this is one of the things I don't really like about a lot of the commentators in the weight loss space, is like they feel like, okay, the larger the force, the stronger the wave, the faster the ball, the better. But that could be the trap. What you're actually looking for is to sort of gradually change things so it's like, no, I'm not being threatened. I'm being pushed, but I'm not being threatened. It's not hitting that threshold here where we have to stop it, where it has to stop. And that's something that Amberlynn Reid needs to work out within herself. And that's kind of a thing of like, okay, how are we going to gradually tease up? You can kind of do a little bit of like, once you've gotten through that push, what you use that push for is you use it to sort of give a little note back to system 3, equilibrium maintenance. Look at what we can do. Look at what we can do. Look at what we can stay on a weight loss plan for this many days so we can continue it. But system number 3 needs to know that it's not being pushed too much outside of the Overton window or the little range of system number 3. So you use it to sort of push and use each of these iterations in a sort of a recursive manner to push a behavioral change gradually over time. So theoretically, the whole strategy of having her lose subscribers and such, if it wasn't done with such an sort of like an inimical attitude, it could work. But of course, humans are humans. It's somebody we're emotionally attached to. We're gonna get pissed. We're gonna get upset that something's happening that should not be happening. That's just our own fight or flight. And it's justifiable. Is it the best thing for Amberlynn Reid? Maybe not. But if this sort of conceptualization kind of starts to change a little bit, then we can keep pushing and pushing and pushing things a little bit more. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to do this in a way that pushes her to the point of falling. Because once you fall, it's over. Unless you keep putting yourself back out there, which takes a level of discipline I don't see in Amberlynn Reid. The answers for today's video are that there are no simple answers. If you want to continue with the whole unsubscribing from her type strategy, go with it. But do so in a way that signals that it is not a total and absolute threat, and that this will help her, and not help her in a patronizing way that destroys this thing called agency. I'm going to do a whole separate video, and possibly a whole series on the topic of agency and that control system we have within ourselves that protects our identity from the outside world, and how to deal with that, but something that works in line with her agency. Don't just squash everything down. Like, if she's gonna go and she wants to be creative with something else, even if she kind of sucks at that kind of video, that's not the kind of thing you want to be going and necessarily attacking, because you don't want to wake up that system 2 there. Hopefully there can be some cognizance in Amberlynn Reid's mind that she needs to put herself in a better position to take advantage of these things. hopefully you can have some changes in the outside stimulus that kind of signal that to her and gradually keep bringing her to that realization. The biggest problem is that there isn't enough close contact, because the closer you are to a situation, if you are in her life, if you are personally with her, if you talk to her on a regular basis, that is where you have the most opportunity, because then you can do things a lot quicker, and you can understand what needs to be leveraged, what doesn't need to be leveraged, and how to push things in the right way. Looking from the outside in, looking all the way up and then up and down, is not a very good way to look at things, but it's what we have right now. All right. That video might have confused you, it might have helped you, it might have slightly amused you. I don't know what it did for you. Whatever it did for you or didn't do for you, post it in the comments. If you liked what I had to say, hit the like button, and please hit the subscribe button. You got this far, I'm gonna reward you, but not until I use some stimulus to get you into another direction. I have a contest running till end of the quarter. You can win 25 bucks if you watch a series of videos where you can rate me on the Amberlynn Reid scale. How much am I like Amberlynn Reid? Fill out the form, put in your information. You can be entered into a drawing to win $25 cash. The video playlist for that, which they're personal vlogs, kind of like Amberlynn Reid's, hopefully a little better, is right down there in the description. So click down to the description, get to that playlist, and in the description of each of those videos, you can enter one time for each video. And you can also rate anonymously and then just send an entry in without a rating. And wish you good luck on that. 25 bucks by July 1st, contest ends. All right, all the important stuff's in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great Memorial Day weekend.